Alright, so I'm Mick Fleming, Pastor Mick Fleming. So I'm an ordained minister and I'm in recovery. Uh, my drug of choice was alcohol and crack, and I used drugs from being a very, very, very young age. Uh, and I've been clean for, it's a rough guess now because I stopped counting the days and months, and I can't remember the date, but it's about 11 years, I think, now. Uh, so I think maybe if I just tell you a little bit about my story. So my story was how I became addicted, really. Seems to be something in my mind that kind of, I have a starting point. It seems to fall that way, and a starting point is tragic when I look back. It felt tragic then, it doesn't now. But my starting point was that I was attacked and raped when I was very, very young. And within 24 hours, my sister died as well. So I wasn't in a position where, I didn't think I was in a position where I could tell anybody what had happened. And knowing nothing about sex, because I was a young boy, and knowing nothing about drugs whatsoever, I still don't know to this day why I went upstairs and I took some of my mother's painkillers that she had for a bad back, and I laid on the bed and I just floated away. And it was at that point in my life, it was the best feeling I'd ever had. It took all the pain away, and it just felt so relaxing and so comfortable and so warm inside. And if there was a God, that would be my first experience of God. The pain was taken away, and I felt warm and I felt loved and cared for. But then really tragically came back down to earth, and I felt even worse. So addiction began for me at that point, and it was 30 plus years of using drugs, progressing through all drugs. I think I've probably used all the old school drugs, I would say, because I haven't used spice and monkey dust and all this stuff because I've been clean for 11 years or so, like I said. I've used crack, heroin, speed, ease, every other drug anyway. It doesn't matter. Prescription drugs, especially temazepam and Valium and things like that. But I kind of settled on crack as my drug of choice because I wanted to be up all the time, and I didn't want to face reality. But crack cocaine is very expensive when you have a habit like I had. So inevitably, you're going to have to get involved in criminal activity to maintain that drug, the using of it. And for me, that's what I did. And it started very, very young. So I used to plan robberies and things, even from 13, 14 years of age. And they might have been like sweet shop robberies even, or breaking into factories and stuff, but I meticulously planned them and carried them out on my own, most of the time on my own. And I learnt how to be devious, and I learnt how to make money. And I sort of progressed, and it ended up, where I found that if I had money, then I felt secure inside. I felt like I was doing all right if I had money. So that's what I did. I pursued money, and I was able to make lots of money, but I could never keep it. So I've been quite wealthy quite a few times, but I've had nothing quite a few times as well. So you could go from, stupid amounts of cash to sleeping rough in woods or on a street somewhere. I can sometimes gloss over this, but I was a horrible person, and I really was. And this nice little boy that I were born to be had got lost in all that drugs and all that criminal activity, and I felt like I had a really deep coldness and almost evilness about me, and I liked it. That's the only way I can describe it. I didn't hate what I was. I liked being bad. I trained all the way through my childhood to be bad, and I became it in the end. And so the kind of things that I would do would be, I ended up involved in gun crime, and it's kind of his collecting debts, but it was less about collecting the money for me and more about hurting people. So people would pay me really to hurt people. They didn't really bother about whether they got the money back or not. And I used to travel around to different cities, the major cities, and do that kind of work. I think because of my kind of secretiveness and wanting to do everything by myself, and my meticulous planning, which started when I was a child. I think that's why I got away with so much criminality. And I'd go to cities and do things that wasn't very pleasant, and I was able to just walk away and drive off and drive away, and nobody'd know, and I'd be paid, and it was great like that. And you know, you kind of see some of the things that happen now, and these people within their own areas that do these things, and they get caught, and I kind of felt that I was smarter than all that, you know what I mean? So I had an arrogance about me. It's like kind of an addiction arrogance. If anybody's listening who's from an addictive background, there's an arrogance that goes with it. It's like I'm untouchable almost, you know, or I'm going to be all right even when I'm dying. You know, I'm still going to be all right. And it is, I call it arrogance, and I had that. I had that to the max. I knew I could just pick up and get money at any point, at any time, by doing this kind of stuff. So it was easy, really easy work. But unfortunately, with that kind of work and the people you're involved with, it becomes dangerous. So I had 2 serious attempts on my life, 3 attempts on my life. 2 were serious. 1 was just a warning anyway, but 2 were serious. And you know, thank God that I'm still here. Very, 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 very fortunate. And them things, for most normal people, I'm sure they would have scared them, and it didn't. It just, I had this bitterness inside me that like, I'm going to pay you back. There was no fear. It was more angry and resentment and hatred and stuff. And I knew what I was going to do and all this and things like that. So it almost like I'd become mentally ill, and I had, in the end. Smoking so much crack cocaine always took me to psychosis. So like I said, I always preferred drugs that kept me up there. I drink, or sometimes when I was just so written off that I needed to come down, then I'd take temazepam or Valium or something like that, but like handfuls of it, just because my head couldn't take any more of this psychotic running round, never sleeping. The strangest thing when I look back for me is that my personality was definitely split. I don't have a split personality, but how I was living my life, it came out like that because I was sort of working, if you want to call it work, in 3 major cities in the United Kingdom, and I had a different persona in each. I didn't know I was doing this. It's only looking back over it. I would dress a certain way in one city and talk slightly different, and in 3 different places. And my partners and my family, they knew, they just thought I worked away. They didn't know what I was doing. In fact, nobody really knew what I was doing except for the people who were involved with, which is quite bizarre. I still find it odd, really. But in the end, sort of what happened was all these personalities started to mash into one, and I started to do silly things in my own town, in Burnley, which I would have never done because nobody knew really what I was doing. And that was almost some kind of breakdown, I think, and it was 30 years worth, and I started to unravel, and I started to become a bit more attention to the police locally, where I never really had been. I've been arrested for many, many very serious crimes. I've been arrested for murder. I've been arrested for kidnap. I've been arrested for armed robberies and things like that. I've very few convictions. You can make of that whatever you will. But in the end, I became dangerous to myself and to other people in my day-to-day life, which I wasn't. I had a separation before, but the addiction had took its toll. I guess how I find recovery would be the next kind of thing of my story. I've gone to pick a debt up or to see somebody pay a debt back, whether they paid it by money or by getting hurt, whatever. And this is like the beginning of religious experience for me, or a God experience might be a better word to use than religious, because I still don't think I'm religious, even though I'm an ordained priest. So the experience was quite simple. I just waited for a gentleman to come out of a gym, and I had a gun wrapped in a carrier bag, and I was going to speak to him, shall we say. And he came out, and he had two little girls with him, and he was holding the hands, and I was that cold and that ill, shall we say. I didn't care whether the little girls would have been there or not. It wouldn't make no difference whatsoever to me. Something really strange happened. I could see this light shining off their hands. It was bizarre. I've never experienced anything like it in my life before. And I started to feel sick and really, really ill and sweating, and I didn't know what were happening to me. Never experienced anything like it in my life. And I couldn't see, but only for 10, maybe 15 seconds. Were just long enough for them to walk by me. I staggered, and I got back into the car, and I sat down, and I was sick. Started to vomit and retch, and I was shaking and shivering, and I was panicking because I didn't know what was wrong with me. And I was being sick. There was blood everywhere, because it was blood that was coming up. It was retching from my stomach. I still have damage to my stomach now, all these years later, from that. Whatever it was that were happening to me, it felt like I was being emptied out from the inside. I drove off, and I pulled into an industrial estate, and I pulled up to the side where there was no one around. I was just lost. And I prayed. I sort of prayed for the first time, because I was afraid, really, because I didn't know what were happening to me. I prayed and nothing happened. I sort of felt like I cried out to God to save me, to fix me, to make me better. I didn't. It was a prayer, but it wasn't like asking a God. It was telling God what he better do for me. So I was saying, God, you better do this, or else someone's going to get hurt, blah, 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 things like that. And when nothing happened, I just felt this horrible darkness and this, if I could say, loneliness like I've never experienced before. So even in the darkness of how I lived my life, I didn't feel as lonely as I felt in that moment. I felt abandoned, I felt lost, and I felt that there was no way out. Again, I've never experienced loneliness like I felt in that moment. And in a split second, I put the gun under my chin and I pulled the trigger. And I thank God now it didn't fire. It always fired. That gun would have always fired. But it didn't. And then I cried. And I felt saved. I felt God had answered my prayer. I'd asked him to save me, and he'd saved me from myself. Felt God had stepped in where there was no hope, no nothing. Something began there in me. It was just the beginning of a journey of faith, but nevertheless it was a beginning. I was arrested not long after on a minor offence, and it became really apparent when they interviewed me that I was very poorly. I didn't leave the cell. They got doctors to come in, and they said that I was getting sectioned under the Mental Health Act because I was a danger to the public. and also a danger to myself. So I spent 4 months in a psychiatric unit, and that was my rehab, that was my detox, and I'd never really been clean properly for years and years and years and years. And I couldn't get any drugs whilst I were in this psychiatric unit. But one thing I felt when I were in there for the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged. And it's quite sad or even amusing to kind of, when you think about it. But these guys and girls that were in this psychiatric unit, I walked in a mess, and my shoes were ripped and I were a mess, and they give me training shoes, somebody give me a tracksuit, they give me cigarettes, people went to shop and got me stuff. I'm not talking about the staff, I'm talking about the patients. They knew I was ill and they knew I was in pain, and they comforted me. And that really has shaped my theology and how I perceive God and what I believe. I mean, I suppose it is funny, this bit. How I was in there was desperate to use drugs, but literally they couldn't get out. You know, it was like forced. I couldn't go out. I just, no chance. And I was sniffing coffee, tried to get high on Colombian, coffee, absolutely nuts. And the nurse caught me sniffing coffee, and she said, "Mate, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, you won't give me any drugs and I can't get high, I can't do no, da. She said, "Mick, it's decaf." And that was probably the lowest point of my life. I'm in a psychiatric unit, sniffing decaf coffee, thinking I've got it going on. You know what I mean? That's the addict, that's the extent of what, the things that we'll do, to just try to change how we feel, because how I felt was horrible. I was clean, but I felt horrible, absolutely horrendous, Came out of the psychiatric unit and I ended up in a homeless hostel. And this is where I started to get some realisation of what I was. I didn't know about things like pride. I've learnt these things throughout the years of my sobriety, but I was frightened of people seeing me with nothing. Absolutely. I couldn't believe how much pride I had when I look back. So this is somebody who didn't have anything, again, and I'm in a homeless hostel, and the first time I got paid, I went out and I bought a brand new suit and some brand new shoes and a tie, so I could walk round the town looking like I was all right, pretending that I was really well, and looking at, £5,000 watches in shops and stuff like that, where dreaming that I could have them, and planning to do this, that and the other. And I had one, not a wobble, but I had, in that time, I had one more burst of criminality. It didn't involve drugs, but it involved something else, which I probably don't need to talk about. But so I got some money, a few £1,000. I had this ingenious idea, and it worked out as in a criminal way, shall we say. But it wasn't right. I had all this money again, and it weren't fixing me. It weren't making me better. When I say all this money, I think I made £5,000 in a day, and on something, and it was like, it didn't make me feel any better. I was still just wearing a nice suit and feeling horrendous inside. It was just bizarre. And I had no recovery. I didn't have any, I just weren't using drugs, and I weren't drinking, but it was only a matter of time, really. And I was led in on my bed in a homeless hostel, and I prayed, because I prayed every day. At that point, I had what I call it a visitation. I feel free for some people might call it a psychotic episode, but the proof for me is in kind of what happened. So I'll tell you the best I can, and I guess whoever's listening can make what they want of it. I don't really care what people make of it. I just know what it's done for me. So I'm laid on my bed, and I open my eyes in the morning. I've been praying all night, because I'm lost and I don't know what to do with my life. Lost all my family, my children, everything. I'm alone, and it feels really horrible. And I'm battling not to use drugs and to drink, and it is a battle, and I've got money. I can go and do what I want with the money, There's an angel at the bottom of my bed, and like you do, he said, all right, and I went, all right, how you doing? Yeah, I'm all right. So this is basically what happened for me. So I had 3 days, they weren't nights, they were days, so they weren't dreams, where an angel had come and speak to me. And it told me 3 things. This angel told me 3 things. So the first thing was that I had to stand outside this building at exactly 7 o'clock, not 5 past, not 10 to. I had to be there at 7 o'clock. I had to be there for when the town hall clock made the noise, chimed its bells. So that was the first thing, and I thought, and then it had gone. I thought, what's going on? I must be mental, but I went. I thought, I'm not right, I'm ill. I must be ill, must be really, really ill. And I went, I smoked in them days, so I leant against the wall and I'm smoking a cigarette. And I'm looking at the clock, it's 1:02, and then bang on, the clock chimes, 7 o'clock. And a guy walks around the corner and he went, all right, Mick, I bet you didn't expect to see me here, did you? I nearly collapsed. I didn't know what to say, what to do. And the guy worked in the homeless hostel. I didn't know him, but I didn't know his name, but I'd seen him working in there. And he said, come on in, I'll get you a brew. He's anonymous. I said, oh, what? And I just couldn't believe it. I'm thinking, does he know this angel? Has this angel sent him? My head's going 1,000,000 miles an hour. And it was Narcotics Anonymous. And he took me to my first meeting. And I got a concept of God in that meeting. That was the first thing. And that happened exactly as I was told. I were obedient to what that angel had said. And that happened. That took me right into recovery. That's how I began getting well. And the second thing was that the angel said that wanted me to tell people about Jesus. And I thought, there's absolutely no chance that's ever going to happen. And the third thing was that when I told people about Jesus, he said, go all around the world. So I'm going back now 11 years when this were said to me. Anyway, basically, a long story short, is I ends up in a theological college and studying and talking about Jesus. So that happened. And then the third thing is the message, the Christian message, how I understand it, has now gone around the world. So through the work that we do with Church on the Street, through the BBC, through the media in America, in Australia, is the message that we give of our understanding of Jesus Christ has gone around the world. So the 3 things the angel told me have happened despite me. So ask yourself, if you're listening, was it a psychotic episode or was it real? And you can make your own mind up. After I'd finished my degree, I got ordained as a minister, and I guess there were 2 things that could have happened. I could have got ordained and gone and got a house, a car, a housekeeper, a good salary, and been sent anywhere and battered out the rest of my life. Or I could have a tenner and go out and do it myself, and that's what I did. Took the tenner and went out and set up Church on the Street ministries with 2 close friends of mine, David and Mary, who had a background in the Salvation Army, and they were a bit older than me, so they kind of jumped in, came on board, and we started in Burnley, outside McDonald's, giving teas and coffee out and clothes, and I'd give cigarettes out and talk to people, pray with people if they needed it. And then we set a church up, and that was the humble beginnings. And now it's grown and grown. We have recovery groups, Church on the Street recovery groups, which are really popular, and we're seeing really good things happening in them. And they're all over the northwest now. I think there's one in Bournemouth as well. So people are taking them up because they seem to have, they seem to do something that the other meetings don't, I guess. That's the feeling anyway, that's what I'm getting fed back. I think maybe the stuff with the TV has helped us to get some funds, and the funds we've managed to open a hub. We call it a community hub, but it's our church, and we're going to be doing counselling, debt management, food, relief, lots of different work there. So Church on the Street are going to be investing hundreds of thousands of pounds into the town that I'm from to tackle poverty. That's an intent. We've employed 5 people, and we're going to smash it. We're not going to stop. We're going to keep going, and we're going to kind of change the notion of poverty and get the message out there that, you know, poverty is not having equal access to the things that other people do. So whether that's education, whether that's recovery, whether that's reading and writing, whether that's technology, if you don't have equal access to other people, then you're being kept in poverty. So we'll step into them areas, and we're going to try and end poverty that way. I met many people along the way, many good people who've assisted me, helped me, supported me, kind of people from all over the world, which has really been quite bizarre and quite remarkable for me. You know, I've got friends all over the world. I'm just a lad from Burnley that had virtually hardly left. I never really left England, really, to be honest with you. Only when I was a kid, on the odd holiday. And I've got friends all over the world that support. Kev, who's sat next to me, we've been in, was walking prison before COVID hit. You know, a million different things that I've got peace that I didn't have. So I understand Jesus as being someone that went through the suffering and came out to new life. So the death on the cross and the resurrection into new life. And in my using, I would never go through the pain. I didn't want to feel pain. Human beings want to avoid the pain, but you can't. It's impossible. It's an absolute impossibility, because someone's going to die, something's going to happen, life's going to get in the way. But I spent all my life trying to avoid the pain, running away, turning away, pretending it's not happening. When it happens, lash out instead of accepting what's real and true. The notion of Jesus for me is just go through the pain, mate, and come out into new life. And that's what we do, you know. We help people to go through the pain, and we support them, and they come out into new life. And that we use that around addiction, we use that around mental health, we use that around debt, we use that around grief. That's the notion we use, you know. I call it Jesus. Some people call it something else. I don't really care what they call it. We offer Christ in that way, and it changes people's lives. I think one of the people whose life's impact sat next to me, and his story is as remarkable as mine. He's Kev, and I don't know if you want to say a few words, Kev.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Yeah, my name's Kevin Whittaker. I were a bit about myself. I was born Derek Leaf. I adopted at 10 days old to a lovely church-going couple. From a young age, I just felt really different, that I didn't belong. I kind of grew in that, and I just started daydreaming at a young age, just wanting to get out anywhere but where I were, in a lot of pain, a lot of fear. My mum protected us all, but my dad had this temper. It was like he couldn't cope with life. Had a good job and everything, but things built and then he'd explode. And that scared me to death. Started self-harming at a young age. Pull my hair out, pull my nails off, punch myself, throw mad tantrums, lock myself in rooms, and they'd have to ring other people up and to come round to try and calm me down. I'd lock myself in cars, just didn't fit in anywhere. You know, even if it were like a kid's party, someone joining, I just couldn't cope with anything like that. Really couldn't cope. It came to not being able to cope with life, similar to my dad even, and I didn't like that. But I also knew the way that when he exploded, how much it feared me. I started to act that way from a young age, from as young as I can remember. Started to punch friends and lash out and feeling power within that. And not wanting to be nothing like my mum and dad and my family. Even though I went to church and stuff, Sunday school, everything like that, I thought it were weak. I didn't want out to do with it. So I started rebelling at a really young age. Started nicking, stealing money out of wallets and purses, planning it out, knowing all nicks and creaks in house. We lived in a bungalow. I can remember running off at a young age, escaping out at window and doing a runner in the middle at night. They were building new houses around there then. I don't know where I was going to, I just wanted out, but then getting caked in mud and stuff and thinking, better go home. But that was at a really young age, and that preoccupation of that daydreaming and not being able to concentrate on schoolwork, really struggling with all that stuff. Just same at school, started rebelling. I mean, the person and the people who were teaching me about Jesus Christ were the people who were belting me with rulers for talking at dinner, and so that were me. And they'd get the vicar round. I always felt like a bit of a freak, really. We'd have big fancy meals and stuff like that at house, all family would be around, the family and friends, and I can remember them saying, they'd all talk towards me like I were a talking point at the table of what can we do here? We're all really worried about you and really concerned, and we don't know why you like this and all that. Well, I do, and he sat at over end at the table. They made me feel like a bit of a freak, to tell you the truth, and that were all right, because they could all do two fingers up to everyone, really. And we lived on outskirts of Burnley, and it were all started turning into a bit of adventure, really. I didn't want out to do with school. Always not round with all the lads at school. We started going down the wrong path at an early age. It drew me in. It were exciting, and it were a lot less painful than it were at home. A lot less scary. It were exciting. A lot of it were harmless, just dossing out with your mates on your bikes. It were good because we grew up on building sites and things, so could have a good crack, kind of harmless fun and stuff like that as a young age. But soon getting into trouble. I can remember my first day at secondary school, because I'm not around with all the lads. They arranged fight. I wanted to start training and things like that at a really young age, because I had this thirst for it, and I was so angry and scared, and I'd do it at silly o'clock in the morning, teaching myself how to skip. Boxing, started boxing at a young age. First day at school, they arranged a fight for me to have a scrap after school at the Israeli garages. I mean, it was first day. I was saying to my mates, there's not going to be a lot of people there. All school were there for this arranged scrap. But it all went bonkers. I won that fight, but then I can remember half at school trying to chase me across field. And it kicked off in all other fights and stuff like that. I thought it was great. And it got me attention. And that's all I ever wanted from a young age. It were that, but it weren't the right kind of attention. But that's what I thrived then, because people were kind to you. They blew smoke up your arse, kind of thing. And I grew in that, and so I trained harder. But at weekends it were I can remember my mum and dad, they'd have a drinks cabinet like everyone had back in the day, and getting drunk at a really young age. It was junior school, and I can remember my friend who were experimenting on these drinks, his dad were really high up in police, and I think I was sick. He went home, he was chucking his vegetables at his mum and dad. So that was a young age, junior school and stuff. And my dad used to do home brew, so I'd drink that. Started sniffing gas from out of an air horn for bike. Smoked fags, but I weren't really into all that kind of stuff. I struggled with lungs as a kid, when I was young. Training were a big thing for me. It was like an escapism. But so was sniffing gas, sniffing glue, drinking, and I was always one that went too far. It was like I was competitive in me getting wrecked as well. It were all about, when I didn't know what ego were back then or all like that. But that's what it were all about, like trying to be better than other ones, but to the point of like blacking out and being sick all the time. But I thought, I'd look down my nose at other kids, I'd think that they were weak and stuff if they get wrecked like that too much, even though I was doing it myself. I always had myself up on like my own pedestal, if you will. Through sports, started doing judo after boxing over at Bay Company. The mate who I not around with, who used to get up into all sorts of trouble with. Like I say, we're kind of, a bit of shoplifting and scrapping and garden creeping, catapults, BMXs, all that kind of stuff. No, major at all. But his dad was a judo instructor and started doing that. And then it was a really good club. So we'd go around the country fighting as teams, in team events and stuff. So at a fairly young age, I was fighting against grown men. I can remember, I think I was at Carlisle and I was really worried because this bloke had a skinhead and was really tough and had a moustache and that. Anyway, he went, well, you can shave your head. And anyway, I did all right, I beat him. But for me then, that were kind of, that were it. Beating blokes on mat at judo, I was kind of unstoppable. It were rebelling, big style. If door were locked it out, I'd dive through it. Police would turn up, I'd be on roof, I'd forever fighting, loved it. It were a real rush of adrenaline. And I could get cold with it as well. It's like I'd calm myself down and end at violence really quite quick. And I loved all that. And like I said earlier, the accolade, it was more important to me to be well known, Jack the Lad, than to do well at competitions and stuff with judo, even though I got a few medals, got over 95s, under 21s, bronze medal down Crystal Palace, which put me through to nationals. But the weekends, it's hard to do a sport like that when you're young and you want to enjoy yourself. And things went wrong fairly quick. I used to love going away from my mum and dad's, and I look back now and it was like a mental health issue. But things like that, it weren't talked about same and that when we were younger. I'd go to my grandma and granddad's, I'd go fishing with him, and these were people I really cared about. And around that age, I'd been injured through judo, and I can remember I'd had a falling out. It was at that time when my granddad passed as well. And it were all too much for me, that I couldn't cope with life as it were. And I went off rails then. Ended up moving into like a squat, injecting drugs and losing a lot of weight to feed me drug habit, robbing houses, was kicking doors in and taking stuff and selling it on, and things went downhill pretty quick. And it was my sister then that pulled me out of that. I ended up in Crown Court, and I was lucky because it were through my judo career that I didn't get jail for that. But I moved back in at home, and it were all getting chased off police all the time for fighting, car chases. But all this time, I always felt like I was like luckiest bloke on earth when it come down to being chased off police. And getting away with fights, and I mean some really bad ones as well, where people have never come back right from them, and that really violent, stamping on people's heads and knocking a lot of men out, and stuff that I really regret. But all this time it was like I was being looked over or something like that, and I don't know what it were, but I always kind of felt that as well. But then through a lot of LSD when I was younger, a lot of speed, smoking dope. I took heroin, but I lost a friend at a young age to it, and like I said, I had this pride as well, this ego and this pride, and it kind of stopped me when I first used it. I can remember I was sore from my head and all. It was like I'd like to be in control, but I started to get psychosis in my 20s. I started Thai boxing as well in my 20s, which I really enjoyed, but I had no intention of doing it at a competitive level, because to me it was more about fighting on the streets and the getting away with it and what come with it. I liked it when, like I said, people give me accolade, they check you in a certain way, and that were more important to me than and plus I like to get smashed. What I'd do, I'd train for like say, I'd train because I were in trouble at home and stuff like that with wife and trying to behave myself, so I'd go into training mode. But I couldn't deal with life, and it was like a pressure cooker, if you will, and it'd build and build. And then it'd be something trivial, and that'd be me gone, and I'd be off on one. There were no rules then. It was like out went, no matter how it would, because I'd trained for it, and I liked to scrap. But I'd had a bad do with psychosis, and I couldn't leave the house for about a year. I was in a really bad way, proper paranoid and stuff, and I'd started to drink on that. Tranquilizer, what doctor had given me, and drink were never my thing really. It were more chemicals, but they made me mentally ill. So I started to self-medicate with downers and drink, and that became then me new drug of choice, alcohol. I drink a lot, I go on mad binges, and I could tick over while I was on this training mode but I suffered really bad with anxiety and panic attacks. The fear of going crazy scared me more than dying. And that went on for a long time. In my late 20s, I can remember I ended up in hospital, been on like a few day bender, and I was vomiting blood. And I woke up and all family were around me, my bed, my sister, my mum, my dad, my partner at the time, she was there, and they wanted to get me into a rehab, and I thought to myself, what would my mates think? They'd think I was weak. And it was that pride, and I think I did all right then. I think I lasted a fair few months because I was scared. It scared me a bit, but I couldn't I couldn't carry it on. I had to, what lads up to, you know, it was like butterflies in my stomach. I'd be rough until Wednesday, and Thursday you were back on it. You know, just that non-stop cycle all the time. Really, really nosy. Wonder what so-and-so's up to. And same old behaviours. Sleeping around, and I can remember a woman saying to me, so how come you never give me no advice at these? It were ADS then, it were before Inspire and everything. She said, all I can say, Kevin, is that you lead a very elaborate lifestyle, but I don't think you're ready for my help yet. And I'd keep in and out of drug services, but not for me, to keep mothering my child happy, like, you know, well, I'm doing my bit to try and get better. But that life of chaos, I liked it. It were more appealing than the family life to me. That excitement, going out and getting smashed, but the thing with it all, you start to become really very ill. My behaviours become worse. off the wall. It was just about that party life. I'd done a fair few home detoxes and stuff like that. But to what I was becoming so ill towards the end. I were having alcohol seizures. I were overdose on cocaine fits. I didn't know what cocaine fits were or these seizures are out. Umpteen trips to hospital, vomiting blood. They got me a detox, and then I remember in court. Then I went to court and then straight into this therapeutic community. And I went to that place because I thought I'd get myself fit running up and down sand dunes and all that lot. Cause that's what I'd do. I'd get myself fit and then I could go back at it and abuse myself to the max. But they won't let me out. And I thought once I would dry again, well, and there was too much going on outside. My life was so complicated that. And then I went into a deep course. I was living in a Thai boxing gym, doing sprints in the morning and then going on weights, going to deep, Thai boxing at night. But relapsed 11 week in. Did like another 6 month bend or something like that. And my life was chaotic. It was like, you're talking mental health, services, crisis teams. Oh, it were bonkers. Getting chased off police forces with helicopters, affairs. It was like my morals had completely gone right out the window. I thought I had my own code of morals and respect and all that lot, but that had all gone out the window big style. You know, up and I were towards the end, I think that, while having an affair with me mate's missus, while my missus had a premature baby up on a rape allegation. My life was pretty chaotic. I saw Mick's wife. We were in deep together. We'd known each other from teenagers, from Angel's days and stuff. And then I saw her, she was really quite poorly, and I thought, that don't look well for her. And then I'd relapsed, and she come walking past the pub, looking really quite healthy. So I went out to her. I didn't expect to ever see her again, to tell you the truth. She was that ill. And she said, what you want to do is get into Aldgate House. And I was going through Inspire. So I knew which one I wanted. I was so poorly, having seizures and stuff, and they fast-tracked it. I went to go and visit it, and I thought, that'll do. But same again, I had no intention of going in. I just wanted the detox so I could get well again, start training again. But I died through the door at home. I think it was Cone Blues Festival, and I smashed out my head and she locked me out. So I died through the door, and then she rung police. She'd had enough. I mean, we didn't used to ring police and things like that. It was like the big no-no, but poor lass said she was at her wit's end. And because police were involved, and so was social services. And I was talking, turning up to like school meetings completely off my napper, and me turning up with mental health team worker, and it weren't good. I had to jump through these hoops. I had one little bit of fight left in me, and that were I weren't being told that I couldn't see my own children. I thought I will get well, but so I got a 10-day detox at Bradford. Took me on to do a detox there, and then straight from there into Aldgate House. I can remember when I interviewed for Aldgate House, halfway through interview, my body went into shock. So I had to like back at car pouring drink down my neck to try and come back to. Sister were in tears. I was very ill, and I can remember going into Aldgate House and thinking that I was in like a library or something, because there were these middle-aged women sat round the table, and thinking, well, where am I? I'd really been so ill, not knowing where I were. And I didn't know that they were thinking of getting me section, because been hitting it hard. It was like I was on cocaine every day, diazepam, cannabis. And as much booze as I could get down my neck. So I was really confused, and I was telling people I'd been put in there off my partner's parents, and I think they all thought it was a bit of a giggle. But what they did in Aldgate House is they showed me compassion and caring as they didn't really hit me with all rules and stuff, and it were out in country. I needed that time out from society. But even in my head then I was thinking, I can have these over because I've got money coming in, it's a roof above my head, and they're feeding me. So I felt like it were a freebie. So even then I was like trying to cheat system and stuff, and really struggling in there for weeks on end, couldn't sleep, 2 hours kip a night, so ill, like pacing about, not being able to hold a sentence together. I'd talk about the future and the past, and it were all just all over the place, doing pieces of work, and I know that it were about 12 weeks because around that time when you did step one, and we'd do these pieces of work upon it on yourself, and I was really fortunate to be in there, and I did, I think, 4 months in house and then 3 months in daycare, living in aftercare housing, really, really struggling, so scared, panic attacks, anxiety, but still thinking that I'd be going back to that same kind of life of partying, collecting debts, knocking around with people who dealt in large amount of drugs, and it was like, because it was my kind of job to collect the debts back in and give lads a kicking when they've been having a laugh with them, really, and it went on a fair bit. Thinking that I'd be going back to that kind of lifestyle, and so confused with it and feared up, and I was lucky enough to get an house in Burnley, but not wanting to see none of the lads. I was lucky because none of the lads really said, they all knew script and they all knew that how ill I'd been, and none of them ever asked me to, go out and get wrecked with me or all like that. I was lucky in that respect. I don't know, I was struggling going to meetings and stuff. I thought that meetings were all right for other people. It'd be all right for them because it seemed to work for them. And I felt like I was a lost cause. I was too scared to use, but couldn't go with life in the same breath as well. And I got to a meeting, really feared up. There was no way I were ever going to meet, do a share or anything like that. I'm thinking, if anyone ever says out to me, I'm going to end up bouncing a chair off their head, and then that'll be goose. I was riddled in these panic attacks and anxiety. But I got a bit of peace at these meetings. I don't know what it were. I always seemed to feel that bit better, but 2 days later I'd be smashing stuff up and having these panic attacks and going back in, getting this bit of peace, and that were ongoing, and that's how it seemed to be. Work had been good with me, but still so ill, mentally, physically, and I had no concept of spirituality as such. I did talked about it in rehab, but down the lines I was thinking, because I'd done a lot of Thai boxing and things like that, and maybe Buddhism or Hinduism, but not really looking into it, but definitely not to do with Christianity. And then I got myself a sponsor. I got through to step 4, but he had a fair lot of sponsees on, and I was struggling. So a friend of mine who also worked in a rehab took me through step 4, 5, and she mentioned that her friend, who is now Mick's wife, knew Mick, and whether it could be, he might be able to take me through steps. So I met Mick on McDonald's car park. He likes a McDonald's brew, and he mentioned this concept of thanking your higher power for where you're acting, and I thought he were nuts. I didn't really have a clue about what he was talking about, but then Mick decided to help me and take me through steps, and we met up at my house and we had a lot in common. Straight away it were a good vibe, but nothing were mentioned about Christianity or higher power being Jesus Christ or anything like that. And then it was step 2 of being willing to taking that concept on, and I really didn't want to do with that. But what else did I have to lose, you know what I mean? I were racked in these hair trigger temper fits and also anxiety and panic attack. I was really quite ill. And I'd been clean for like 2.5 years or something, but still like this. And I was scared of killing myself. I'd had to do it that. And that hurt. So, like the way I looked at it were, what did I have to lose? And it were being willing to taking a concept on, not actually taking that concept on. So, and I'd bought cheesecake, so I thought, sod it, it'd be right. And next step, well, it were profound. That was step 3 of taking on a higher power of Jesus Christ. And I said the step 3 prayer. And I had a feeling of overwhelmed love, like you're going to be all right. And I knew it weren't my mother's. And I knew it would, like I were empty inside, like I didn't have any internal organs or all like that. And I felt like I could have fallen out my chair, but I didn't. And I knew that it were the nicest feeling I'd had, and I've took a lot of drugs. And I'm an addict. And I wanted more of this love, peace and joy, which were overwhelming. And in each step going throughout the steps then, I felt this feeling, and it was like, there's your teaspoon's worth. And then so I started looking into, it was weird because I started watching certain films on Netflix and stuff like that, things that had pop up, and that's how I started looking into scripture and reading Bible, and that's how I kind of fell into it. Mick weren't ordained then. We were going to a theological university and we went through steps and that, so I've had an interest in it and trying to support Mick as when he did get ordained, passed out, got ordained, start going out onto the streets with David and Mary. So I've known the story and how it's unfolded right from where I go, and tried to support it, and while trying to go deeper into spirituality and becoming well, it's been a really amazing journey so far. Watching Mick and Church on Street, unfortunately David passed away, and he were a trustee, so I kind of stepped in as a trustee to help out with Church on Street. And then since the article with the BBC and an amazing response, I've been lucky enough to start working for Church on Street. I've 4 or 5 weeks. And for someone who really couldn't cope with life, wanting to float through life, using any chemical and wanting to just be high, not wanting to deal with any responsibility. Now seeing hands-on people suffering and being able to help these people, and the amazing stuff that Church on the Street does. It's really quite remarkable. Sometimes I've been waking up in the morning thinking, I hope so-and-so's all right, and I hope this happens, and I hope that. And the highs of it are really rewarding. There's also the sadness to it and the part of it. So it's peaks and troughs, and I haven't got used to that yet. as such, but it's in that service to other people. And I want to be as close as I can to God. And that's what it says in Scripture, and growing in that and becoming well and maturing in it all, because I really am quite immature. They say it stumps your growth. So it's like I'm a bit of a giddy teenager with a grey beard. But yeah, it's remarkable. It's been a great journey with Church on Streets, and I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kev. So that's, I think I sort of want to say, like, some of the things that Kev said there. It's, you know, it's quite remarkable, you know. You kind of, so we look at forgiveness and letting go, and life's changed, and my own story has allowed me the experience of giving out and understanding. I find that forgiveness is massive. So people often say, I hear them say in recovery circles, but in life, I've forgiven myself now and things are okay. And I've never seen anybody that can forgive themselves. They just always end up carrying guilt and shame and pain. They don't forgive themselves, they push it down and suppress it, and it always comes back in another way and another shape or a form. But with the notion of Christ that we have, it's that it's Him that's forgiven us. So it's outside of us, and that seems to work. And I think I'd probably want to say, back to my story would be the rape, the sexual abuse, and coming into recovery all those years later, and, you know, like Kev saying, helping people, it does something, service does something. And I felt exactly the same, you know, when I was earlier in recovery, and I found an alcoholic, and I helped him, and I spoke to him, and I helped him a bit back on his feet, and he did all right, you know. He got sober, and he got about 2 years sobriety, and he was closely back with his family, and things were good. I never sort of told him, but I knew who he was. He was the man that raped me. And forgiveness isn't saying it's okay. Forgiveness is saying, I don't have to live in your sin anymore, because I'd lived in that man's sin all my life. And I felt forgiven inside. Like Kev spoke about this feeling, he was almost sinless in that feeling when he accepted God into his heart and into his life. He was forgiven, and therefore he could forgive others, and that was the same for me. And that's what we teach, and that's what we show, and that's how people, it's not just about people getting off drugs, it's about people having a life and being able to live free, and not to live in the things that's been spoken over them, done to them, or even the things they've done. There's a real freedom. And the thing, I guess, you know, testimony, my wife, so Sarah, you know, who Kev knew, and how that all entwines. As Kev talked about seeing Sarah, my wife, in she's a real mess and she's going to die. That's how he saw her. And he saw her again, and she looks really healthy and well, and he can't understand what's happened to her. How can that be? How can you go from that to that? But what happened to her is what gave Kev his beginning in recovery. He saw something in her that wasn't there before. You know, she was a woman who was about to die, and there's a story there. The story there is, I didn't know her. I met her, and she was drunk, off-road on drugs. She'd lost her children, and she was going to die. There was no doubt about it. She was very, very, very ill. And somebody rang me, and they said, Mick, can you believe in that God thing? Can you just, there's no hope for this woman, such a lovely lady, but she's going to die. So I said, yeah. And I just met her and sat down with her, with this other guy, and talked to her. And I thought she was going to die myself. And I said, there's only one hope you've got. And she said, what's that? I said, I'm going to pray for you. And I prayed for her. She never drank again. She never took a drug again. She went away. She rattled by herself. She got on her knees when she got home and prayed, cried out to God. Within a week she was in rehab. She came out of rehab and she said, just like Kev had done, she came out of rehab clean and sober, feeling okay, but knowing that she was going to use again or drink again because she was lost. She couldn't cope with the feelings, the emotions, the stuff. She knew she was going to go back. And she contacted me and she said, you're that fella Mick who prayed for me, aren't you? And I said, yeah. She said, I've never used since. She said, but I'm going to relapse. I can't cope. I don't know what to do. So I did the same thing as I did with Kev. I told the same story and we went down the same path. That woman's gone through cancer, stayed sober, stayed clean. She's got her children back. She's coped with all sorts of things that's been thrown at her. Never used, never took a drink. Probably six years passed. She found this notion that we preach and teach of Christ in a way that people understand. If people come to our church or they come to our recovery groups, it's not like going into your average church. You know, we speak to people so they can understand what we're saying about God and how this God we love and care for sets us free, and they get set free. So we're seeing people get clean, get off drugs and get their lives back and go out and tell other people so they can get clean and get their lives back as well. So that's what we're seeing happening in Church on the Street. If we go out and give somebody a food parcel who's addicted and don't give them the opportunity to accept this recovery, then we're just keeping them in it. We're wasting our time, really. You know, the food that we give is just going to feed them for that day, isn't it? It's not, they're not going to be able to cope. You need more, you know, and that's kind of what we do. So, Church on the Street, blimey, so we help to get people into housing. We help to some of our guys pass away and the families can't afford the funerals, so we do the funerals. We help to provide funds for lots and lots of different things. We feed people hot meals. We help people with debt. We put people in touch with counsellors, and we do lots and lots of different things, but we do it on a basis of love. So there's a scripture in the Bible called 1 Corinthians 13, and it's based in love, is this scripture. And it's a different kind of love. So not a normal love that the world kind of holds on to is me. So it's like, you do this for me, and I'll do that for you. And we say that's not love. So there's a thing that we call kind of fish love, where it's, I absolutely love fish. It's amazing. But what I do is I go and catch one, I kill it and I eat it. Now that isn't love. You like fish, it's very tasty, but it's not love. You know, love kind of allows things, you nurture things, you don't destroy things. You don't get a flower, do you, and kind of, you know, you let it grow. If you pick it, it dies because you own it. So this scripture, 1 Corinthians 13, says that if I go and give out food parcels, if we help people into recovery, but we don't have love, and we've got nothing, and we're completely wasting our time. But this love is the love that forgives. And the notion of Jesus on a cross suffering and saying in his prayer, in his last hours, Father, last moments, Father, forgive them, because they don't know what they're doing. That's the love that we preach. That's why you get two thugs like me and Kev that've hurt people. That was our job, to hurt people. You know, violence and hatred and venom and justification and everything else they can say today. I love Jesus because he's changed my life. And we want to help people and serve people and care for people. That's the notion of love, and the kind of what we teach, what we preach. And our preaching and teaching isn't with our mouths alone, it's with our hands and our feet. So we'll do the things that we talk about. You know, this is where we feel that our church and our theology is completely different. So the theology is really simple. We kind of we believe that when we're helping others, we're helping Christ. We're feeding people who are hungry, clothing people who are cold, and we believe that's a loving thing to do. And it's not our love that we're pouring out, it's the love of God that's inside us. And it's an amazing feeling when it's not you doing it, or it's not about you, let's put it that way. When it isn't about you, you know, the feeling is quite profound. You know, there's it's just based in love and care, and it works. And we're seeing hundreds and hundreds of people come to accept and know this love and to ask questions about it. We get emails and phone calls from all over the world. People who are desperate and want help. There's mass poverty in the area that we work, but the authorities don't like it being acknowledged because it looks like they're not doing the job properly. So they try sometimes to suppress what's really happening. Our job is to just go out and love and care and do what we do. And that's what we'll continue to do. So all the money we've raised and people who's helped us, it will go directly to tackle poverty, every single penny. And it will be investing in the town and the people that we helped to destroy in the first place, you know. And real poverty, you know, is not knowing what you are. You're free from poverty when you know what you are. So the story Kev's told and the story I've told, we know what we are. We know exactly what we are, you know. We know who and what we are in Christ. And we're prepared to go through the suffering, to come out to new life. We don't hide. We're not afraid. We'll stand up. And that's not us. That's the love that's in us. And we believe God is love. And it's just great to be asked to come and just talk openly like this about our faith, about our recovery, about the things we do, you know, and how we do them. And I guess I don't know if Kev wants to say any more. And then maybe we can talk about how we hope the future goes, maybe. I don't know if you want to say any more, Kev.
Looking over it there, I think that when I said that I always kind of being, like I was being watched over, I was the raggiest bloke in town and all. But then towards end, like I say, it were like my luck were running out. I knew it were like it were all becoming, it were coming to an end. It were like I was getting taught a lesson. Like, because I just went round doing what I wanted, when I wanted, to who I wanted. And it was like, I don't know, it was just, no you can't. You know, and it were, well, they said there's three outcomes, aren't there? Jail, institutions and death. And I was so scared of the institution, it scared me to death, the going crazy, but I was so very ill. I mean, and my behaviours were off the wall. I mean, like I said, I went around sleeping with women and things like that all the time. The only lady I didn't sleep with, she cried rape, and fortunately enough that got clear that I didn't. And I'm thinking, can't go around acting like this no more, and I do need help. And I think it were asking for that help and then going deeper into spirituality as going through the steps of finding out what you are, or your old bad character traits, your defects of character. There you are, this is what you are, this is the honest truth about yourself. And then as you're going through the steps, turning your back on those behaviours through the Holy Spirit and knowing what you are and being grateful for what you are, and turning from the fear, faith, antidote to fear, and doing good instead of bad.
Yeah, it's quite remarkable, isn't it, really? But we have a way out that's tried and tested. It's a way out of grief. It's a way out of pain. It's a way out of addiction. It's a way that works. It's a way that transforms and changes lives. It's a way that gives fathers back to the children, etc., etc. Most people are blind and don't want to follow that way. But we believe that we found a way to tell people about this that's not regimented, that's not religious, that's not oppressive. It's freedom because it's based in love. We believe the Christian message, the true Christian message, the teachings of Jesus have got lost and repressed in structures and organisations down the years, and we're almost deliberately trying to go back to this original concept that Jesus taught. And for us, and what we're seeing, it works, it's working in the ministry, and it's changing lives. And I think that being said, that's how we are. We don't force our faith on anybody. You don't have to be. We have atheists come to our services. We work with the Muslim community. It doesn't matter what you are to us. It matters that we practice this love and this principle that we call Christ in our lives and let that light shine out. That's all we do. That's literally it. There's no conditions that anybody has to come and be anything else, you know. So I think kind of going forward, we've got some great plans going forward. So with the ministry, so we've got the hub now, which is an amazing building. We've been supported, not financially, but by Burnley Council. They're helping us, kind of within their office with planning and address things and lots of things. They've been really, really good with us to help us to get it up and running and start. So we're really grateful for that. So inside this hub, it's our church, but our church has got showers in it, lockers in it, for people who may be homeless, people who don't have gas and electric, can't have a shower, they can have a shower at our place. We'll have food in it, we've got a food bank in it, we've got counsellors, we've got health professionals, we'll have debt management. I can go on and on and on. So at the moment we're employing 5 people. The hope is that we're going to eventually be employing 20 people. Not on rubbish wages either, just decent wages so that people can kind of live, volunteering opportunities. We're basically looking to tackle poverty head on. And we hope and we pray that it doesn't offend people, us doing that kind of work, because it's not our intention to make other services or other people look bad. It's just our intention to show the love and the care in the areas where it's needed, You know, when you look at all the figures for our town, poverty is horrendous, but, you know, people don't like to hear that. Well, that's the official figures. So my job, I'm an ordained priest, my job is to bring something to that situation and not to ignore it. And, you know, I think Burnley's got fantastic stuff. It's got a great football team, you know, it's got beautiful parks, it's got a lot of good people. It's an amazing place, but it's poor, you know, and we want to change that, and we want to see people stepping out of that poverty, and we want people to have opportunities to work, to get training, to have access to get glasses and get the teeth done and things like that without it costing them money that they can't afford. Do you know what I mean? We want children to be able to have haircuts. You know, if you've got 4 kids, you know, on universal credit, and your kids want the haircut, it's a nightmare. So if they do it yourself, you go to school and you get bullied because you've got that dodgy fringe. Kev, you've got a dodgy fringe. It's things like that. It's the simplest of things done with love and care, and that's what we're looking to do. We're going forward to hit poverty head on and change things. And we believe all these things are physical, mental, emotional, but spiritual as well. And if you accept what we're saying, your life can change if people are in a rut and stuck, you know, because we're living proof that it can, because we were the hopeless. Thank you.